We have an excellent relationship with the government because, again, the government has invited us to come to Japan to restart the industry. And so we think we're in an ideal position to make a new discovery. There's the old saying that, the best place to make a discovery for a new gold mine is within the shadow of the head frame of an existing mine. And we're within the shadow of the head frame of one of the highest grade tier one gold mines on the planet. Where could there be parallel veins that maybe just hadn't erupted out to the surface, but are just slightly buried, but are parallel to the veins that have been mined in the past? So we look at trying to find veins there.
Everybody is waiting for the gold junior stocks to pick up again. So now it's really the time to have a look at different companies and to pick really the best companies and the best stocks for the potential boom in the junior market industry. And you want to look for companies that are unique and for companies with large potential. And sometimes the juniors even have one of the big names on their share register. But today with me is John Proust. He's the chairman of Japan Gold, and he does not only have one of the majors with him, he has two of them, and I'm really excited to learn more about that and your company. First of all, John, it's really great to have you.
Great to be with you today, Jan. So thank you for having me.
So before we talk about your project and all the major companies and farm managers involved into your company, let's talk a little bit more about Japan, because you're in Japan, right? The company name is Japan Gold, so we kind of get the story here really quick. But before we dive deeper into the project, let's talk about the location for a minute. I mean, the Japanese yen kind of collapsed within the last few months. The gold price in Japanese yen went extremely high. To me, it sounds like a pretty good location to be in, right? They have to be really keen on what you're doing. Tell us more about Japan and the story. Is there even gold mining? Are you a first mover? Tell us more about that, please.
Well, certainly the economics, as you point out, the yen is certainly in our favor with a weak yen and a strong Canadian dollar, a strong US dollar. So our dollars can go a long way in the country. There's no question about that. But really what you have to do is you have to look at Japan as a destination. And if you're a gold explorer, it has all the check marks of a perfect location to make a new major gold discovery. And I'll tell you why. So first of all, from a geological standpoint, the Japan Islands that are pictured behind me they sit on top of intersecting tectonic plates. So one tectonic plate is subducting, it's going under the other one. So when you have that kind of movement, you have lots of volcanic activity, lots of faulting. What that does is it creates pathways for mineral-rich fluids deep in the earth to flow up and to concentrate the precious metals and deposit them close to the surface. And that indeed is what's happened in Japan. Gold mining has been very active in Japan for well over 500 years. And we have to assume that prospectors have looked at all the surface of Japan, and wherever they found something poking out of the ground, they've been mining those. That all stopped in 1943 when the government put a moratorium on gold mining. They stopped all gold mining in Japan, and they moved the workers from 76 active gold mines. They moved them all into base metal mines and steel factories to support the Second World War. After the war, only a few mines reopened, and today there are still 64 closed gold mines in Japan, which is incredible. Now, those gold mines have not been explored. There's been no modern methods that have really been employed to look at those mines. So there's been a real opportunity. Unfortunately, until recently, Japan was a closed society. So it didn't allow foreign companies to come into Japan to look at these mines or to look at restarting that industry. In 2012, the government changed the Mining Act for the first time in the country's history to allow foreign companies to come into Japan and to restart the gold mining industry. And Japan Gold was the first company in the world to go there and to take on this incredible initiative. And we were the only company, so we were not only first mover, but we were first mover by ourselves for 4.5 years before anybody else came. That gave us the opportunity to study the 64 closed gold mines and to compare them to the single operating gold mine in Japan today, which is a more recent discovery that was made by the government quite accidentally in the 1980s. A sort of a science experiment at one drill hole was being drilled for technical purposes, and they accidentally discovered what is today one of the highest grade tier 1 gold mines in the world. And it's in the southern island of Kyushu, which is over my shoulder there. So this mine is owned by Sumitomo Metal Mining. And what's particularly unique about this, and it talks about that prospectivity that exists in Japan, is that it's a 13 million ounce ore body. They've already mined 8.5 million ounces, and the grade is incredible. The global average grade of high-grade gold mines is 7 grams per ton, and their average grade is 30 to 40 grams per ton, which is very remarkable. So that shows you the potential that exists in Japan. So basically, just to continue with the background, so we spent 2 years studying the historic or the old closed mines, the 64 closed gold mines, working with the government to design a permitting process that would allow new companies to come in like ourselves. And once we completed that, we started applying for all the key areas in Japan that we thought were highly prospective. And that's what we've done now. So we've now been able to go to the 5 gold provinces or gold districts in Japan to pick the key areas that we wanted. And we have now 35 projects that cover 47 of the 64 closed gold mines. And they're all the same style of mineralization as that Hishikari gold mine that I referred to, the only operating gold mine in Japan today. So our plan, our goal and objective is to find new Hishikaris in Japan by using modern exploration methods and using new ideas and models that have come to the fore, certainly since the 1940s. And so that's what we're doing today.
This is really great, because when we talk to investors and tell them to do their due diligence, obviously the jurisdiction is one of the best things to look at, right? And in this case, we're talking about one of the largest economies in the world, Japan, right? You're close to an existing mine with not only high grade, but really, really high grade. So this is great. And you already said you're like implementing a better permitting situation in Japan, right? It's kind of new to them as well. So that means that you're working close together with the government. Can you say that you have a good relationship there?
Oh, we have an excellent relationship with the government because, again, the government has invited us to come to Japan to restart the industry. And I should really speak a little bit about why they asked us to do that. So on the northern island of Hokkaido, which we can see on our map, and the southern island of Kyushu, this is where most of the closed gold mines are located. But both of those areas are quite rural and there's no economic drivers. So they're getting very economic depressed in those areas. People have moved away from the rural towns and villages to the large urban centers. So the government was looking for a way to stimulate those rural economies. And so to restart the gold mining industry, it was a wonderful new initiative to do that when this resource, this legacy existed already. So they invited us to do that. Once we had assembled our portfolio of projects, we started letting the large mining companies in the world know what we were doing. And we were really thrilled to see the kind of response that we received. So, as you mentioned in your introduction, we have the 2 largest gold mines or gold mining companies in the world deeply embedded in our business, being Newmont, who is a large equity shareholder in our company, and Barrick Gold Corporation, the second largest gold mining company, who has been very active with us for the last 3 years, evaluating our portfolio of projects and selecting which ones they felt had the potential to host a tier 1 or tier 2 ore body. Tier 1 being 5 million ounces or greater, tier 2 being 3 million ounces or greater. And so at the completion of their analysis, Barrick funded this evaluation, by the way. They spent $17 million evaluating our projects. They have now identified that there are four significant projects in Japan, one up in Hokkaido in the north, one on Honshu Island, just behind me, the Long Central Island, and then two in southern Kyushu, either side of that Hishikari gold mine. And these ones all have that potential. So these are a focus for Barrick, and that's how we're proceeding with them. Now, the relationship with Barrick is quite interesting because Barrick only earns an interest when they complete a pre-feasibility study on a project and that they fully fund that. They get 51% of the project. When they go further and they complete a bankable feasibility study, then they can get to a 75% interest. So we retain a 25% interest after they've carried us right through bankable feasibility. So to support that, what we've done is we've spent the last 3.5, almost 4 years building an incredible share register that is quite unique for a junior mining company. In that 60% of our shares are now held by the largest institutions in the world. And these are institutions like BlackRock and RCF, Resource Capital Funds from the US, Rothschilds, and I can go on. There's 11 institutions that are there. They're all positioned in Japan Gold because they want to be our partner when we go forward to build the mine. They want to provide that large capital when we go forward to build a mine. So we built a wonderful foundation for our business and to carry us well into the future, into the production scenarios as well.
This sounds really great, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about that, right? I mean, you're now at like a $20 million market cap level, and you said Barrick already like spent 17 million to do due diligence on you. You got all the great names on your share register, which is really kind of unique. But we are still trading at like a 6 cent level.
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
What has to happen? Why do you think that is?
So here's precisely what I think. So to add to your comments about the 17 million with Barrick, if I look at the money that we've spent and the money that Barrick has spent altogether, we've spent $85 million restarting the gold mining industry in Japan. So we spent $85 million restarting the gold mining industry in Japan. We've got the price of gold at all-time highs. And yet our share price is at 6 cents, and we have a market capitalization of approximately $20 million. I think what's happened is that because Japan is a new destination for investors, and especially retail investors, they're waiting to see the discovery being made. And so since 2012, for the last 12 years, we've been doing all that foundational work of building the right shareholders, picking up the right projects, bringing in the right partners. But now the pace is really picking up because the pace is all about drilling and drilling for discovery. So there's 2 points to be made there. Number one is Barrick, as I mentioned, has focused on 4 particular projects, and it's all about drilling, drilling, drilling. So our next year, 2 years or more is all about drilling and results. So we're drilling to make discoveries. So investors that come in now will know that we've got this incredible foundation, but any results should really propel our share price substantially higher. And so that's a really important piece. The second piece is that recently we brought in a president and chief operating officer to join me on the executive team. And he's come in to lead our discovery group. So he's leading our discovery team. The person that we brought in has remarkable credentials. Mm-hmm. He came to us from Newmont. So Newmont recently acquired Newcrest, and Fraser McCorkadale was the head of global exploration for Newcrest. He'd looked very, very carefully at Japan was very interested in becoming involved in Japan and partnering with us in his role at Newcrest. But we've selected Barrick, and the rest is history. So to give you a little bit of background about Fraser, in the last 8 years, he's looked at over 300 projects across the world. And after the Newmont acquisition of Newcrest, I called him and I just to congratulate him, but I kind of half jokingly said, you wouldn't want to leave the big company and come and join, a leading explorer. And he said, I would. I said, really? Why would you do that? We'll pay you a fraction of what you're getting paid before, and we're only going to incent you to make discoveries. And he said, look, I've looked at 300 projects around the world over the last 8 years, and the very best geology that I've seen is in Japan. And Japan is completely underexplored. There's been no modern, exploration methods. None of the new models have really been applied to the exploration efforts. And Japan Gold has $85 million of data that he can then synthesize with those new methods to make those discoveries, to really highlight those areas. So we're delighted to have Fraser join us and lead that discovery team. And he and I have been in Japan for the last several months, working with our technical teams there, making sure that he's across all of our projects, not only helping Barrick with their style of projects, but also looking at our portfolio with a view to two things. One is to bring in new joint venture partners, other mining companies that now want to come in and partner with us. They'd like to know which ones Fraser feels are the important priorities for us to partner with. And of course, if we do that, new partners come in and they fully fund those operations and hopefully reimburse us for some of our historical expenditures, and they pay us as operators on a cost plus basis. So that's excellent. The second piece is we think that there may be projects that we want to advance ourselves. And so again, we're looking at our project portfolio to put them in those two baskets. So really, at the end of the day, Japan Gold has an incredible amount of optionality for investors because there's the foundation of Barrick having gone through several years of due diligence, picking 4 projects that they're advancing now and drilling for discovery, new partnerships that are funded by large international companies that want a footprint in Japan, and projects that we might want to highlight ourselves. So it's a really exciting time, and that's what I think investors are looking for, is those partnerships and those discoveries with the drill bit.
Sounds good. So we really touch base on great partners, great jurisdiction with infrastructure, right? We touch base on permitting, for example, also a little bit on your team. But let's talk a little bit to check all the boxes, right, about you, because you're kind of in an executive role, right, as a chairman. So we always say it's really important to understand the management team. First of all, is a question, do you have skin in the game, as they say? So are you invested in the company too? And what's your background? Why do you think you as a person can make this to a great success here?
Yes. Well, look, so to touch on our management team. So I think we've assembled an outstanding management team, not only for the company, but also our board of directors to support management. And so in addition to myself as the chief executive officer of the company and chairman of the board, to talk about my background, I've been a serial entrepreneur in the mining industry for over 30 years. We've had some great success internationally in several different instances. I was a co-founder of a company called Osisko Mining, which has been a very, very successful company now. I was the chairman and CEO of the predecessor that really advanced their principal asset, which is called Windfall Lake, and it's really propelled that company into an amazing position that it's in now, where it has a 50% partnership with Gold Fields. So that company's gone well. We've also been behind Tethyan Resources, which was acquired by Adriatic Metals in an acquisition on the London Stock Exchange a couple of years ago now, and that's been very successful as well. And so there's quite a long history of trying to be the first mover or getting into areas that people have not been considering, looking for unique opportunities, and trying to move very, very quickly and stealthily to secure positions for our shareholders, and then bring in the large partners to advance things going forward. So added to me on the management team, Fraser McCorkadale. I've already described his background. So what a wonderful partner to have with me at that level. Also, our general manager of exploration in Japan is Takashi Kuriyama. Now, Takashi Kuriyama was previously the head of global exploration for Sumitomo Metal Mining. So we have not only the former head of global exploration for Newcrest, but also the former head of global exploration for Sumitomo Metal Mining. Now, Sumitomo Metal Mining is also the owner of that Hishikari gold mine that I referred to, one of the highest grade tier 1 gold mines in the world. And previously, Takashi Kuriyama was the general manager and chief geologist at the Hishikari gold mine. So I'm delighted to tell you that in that gold province where the Hishikari mine is located, we hold 84% of all prospective ground in that region. We surround the Hishikari gold mine. So we think we're in an ideal position to make a new discovery. There's the old saying that, the best place to make a discovery for a new gold mine is within the shadow of the head frame of an existing mine. And we're within the shadow of the head frame of one of the highest grade tier 1 gold mines on the planet. So we couldn't be in a much better position there.
Yeah,
So we have a number of people that are on our management team that lead initiatives either in Kyushu, where Takashi Kuriyama is focused, or in Hokkaido, where we have another individual there, Dr. Olga, who leads our Hokkaido operations. So we've got a wonderful group there. We're supported by a board of directors that is really a very diversified board of directors with wonderful skill sets. So again, Takashi Kuriyama is on the board of directors with me. We have the previous Canadian ambassador to Japan, who was there for 5.5 years and was actually raised as a child in Japan because his father was a diplomat there as well. So we've got great insight and relationships in Japan. In addition to that, we have Paul Harbage, who is a top global explorer and was at Rand Gold with Mark Bristow, the current CEO of Barrick. So Paul led the exploration group in Africa, and they made several key discoveries there, which made them the most successful company on the London Stock Exchange, I think, for 5 years in a row. In addition to that, we have Michael Carrick, who is a very well-known international mining executive. He's put 7 mines into production in 5 different countries around the world, including a contribution of over $1 billion to the formation of B2 Gold. And finally, our most recent director is Keiko Hattori, Dr. Keiko Hattori. Keiko Hattori is a woman that was the first woman in Japan to receive a PhD in geology and geophysics from Tokyo University. She's been a professor at the University of Ottawa in Japan. She's an expert in Japan, of course, and she. I said the University of Ottawa in Canada, and she is also married to Jeff Hedenquist, who is one of the top geologists in the world and also an expert in Japan. So we just have a great set of guidance there that really advances our company going forward.
So
In terms of ownership strategy, sorry, Jan, I just wanted to touch on that. So management, we own 6% of the company, and that's predominantly myself. But all of our employees and consultants are incented in one way or another through our employee share ownership plan or otherwise to really have skin in the game. So we have everybody committed and moving in the same direction.
That's good, because that's one of the key factors, right? Because if the management doesn't believe in the company, then why should the investors? But you obviously do so, and you do have a great team, especially for an exploration company with like only 20 million market cap. And I think there is a lot of upside potential here. I mean, we touched base on a lot of things, and I think we already checked a lot of boxes, right? But maybe for the investors, you can just do step by step, go a little bit through your main projects as you like, and tell us what to expect within the next few years. Maybe make it easy to explain, easy to understand, so everybody gets the story as easy as possible, because I think it's a really good story to understand. Gold in Japan, great team, great partners as well. So let's talk about the projects for the end.
Sure. So I'm just going to sort of set the stage for you in Japan. And as I mentioned at the onset, there was 500 years of gold mining in Japan. And so most of Japan has been covered by prospectors in the past. And so really there's two models or styles that we're looking at in Japan. So the the prospectors would have found things that were poking out of the ground, like quartz veins that would have had gold and silver in them, and those would have been mined. But if I look at a cross section across Japan, the mining history was very, very shallow. The mines were 50 meters, 100 meters, maybe 125 meters deep, and generally in the young volcanic rocks. And they usually stopped when they got to the water table because they didn't have pumping capacity. So if water was flowing into the mines, they had to stop, even though these veins would go deep in the earth and oftentimes get bigger and get higher grade as they went deeper. So that's sort of been the history. So when we look at Japan, we're looking for and the term is search space. What's the search space in Japan? Where are you going to make those new discoveries? So the first thing that we look at is around those mines. So as I said, in the shadow of the head frame, where could there be parallel veins that maybe just hadn't erupted out to the surface, but are just slightly buried, but are parallel to the veins that have been mined in the past? So we look at trying to find veins there. The other thing that's interesting, so that's one style of mineralization. So we're looking for vein targets that could emulate the veins that were there. By the way, when I look at that sort of thin veneer of Japan that is being mined, the the mines that were active in Japan, and there was a number of them, were sort of 1 million ounce mines to 2.5 million ounce mines. Then, as I mentioned, the Hishikari mine was found through an exploratory drill hole by the Geological Survey, and it went deeper below the volcanics to the basement. So the interface of the basement. And when it got there, it discovered Hishikari. Now Hishikari is 13 million ounces. So it's at a deeper horizon. So that gives us a second search space. So the first is beside the old mines, and the second is below the old mines or deeper where the volcanics and the basement interface exists. So now to bring that into what activity is going to happen over the next couple of years. When I look at the Barrick portfolio of 4 projects, funnily enough, 2 of the projects are that vein style. We've gone into areas of Japan that are remote or that have been covered with a thick canopy and dense bush that have been very hard to get into. So our teams have gone in at the right time of the year and with the right tools to get there. So the projects that we have, the one project in Hokkaido and the one project on Honshu, those are both vein style projects. And we would hope to drill both of those projects this year. And just to give you a sense of it, the project up in Hokkaido, I've been there twice in the last few months. Our teams happened to be walking through this one area that again was very dense with sort of not jungle, but it's more it's more sort of a moderate climate there, but very, very hard to get through. But it happened to be at the end of the year where all the leaves were off the trees and the bamboo grass had been, dampened down, so we could see things. We found a hill that was about 100 meters high and about 50 meters wide and about 300 meters long. Now, you wouldn't have known that if you just sort of walked by it, but we hiked up that hill and with our rock hammers, we broke off rock and we found that that whole hill was quartz. And that was really remarkable because what that represented was a quartz vein that had come up from deep in the earth with such force and such volume that it had erupted up to the surface and had formed this hill. And then we found a number of other hills that look similar in the same area. This is the perfect setting for us to drill under that to make discoveries where just a little bit deeper, there should be those concentrations of gold. The gold being heavy, so sometimes with the quartz, it doesn't make it all the way up to the surface. It kind of lags behind. So often it's found about 100 meters to 400 meters below the surface. So that's an ideal search space for us, and we'll be drilling that later this year. Similarly, with the second project on Honshu Island, there is an abandoned gold field, which is near the third largest gold mine in Japan, or sorry, the second largest gold mine in Japan. And it has very similar characteristics. We have acquired the whole gold field now, and our sampling and other testing has demonstrated there could be fantastic continuity along a 7-kilometer trend. We're going to be drilling that this year. The first one, by the way, that I spoke about, Jan, in Hokkaido, it's located next to the third largest gold mine in Japan. So you can see, within the shadow of the head frame, Barrick is following that. The other two projects are completely different. They're the ones that are either side of the Hishikari gold mine. So the second style is, as I mentioned earlier, there's been lots of volcanic activity in Japan. So volcanoes, when they erupt, they are spewing out ash, and that ash settles over large areas and forms a blanket, a veneer across the topography that sort of masks what's underneath that. What we've been able to find in Kyushu and in the gold province that surrounds the Hishikari gold mine is a few windows where we could actually see through that blanket to what's beneath that. And we're finding incredibly large areas of alteration, which are which are containing gold, which are really intriguing to us. So these are quote blind discoveries or discoveries obscured by that volcanic ash cover, but they look to be very, very large. So Barrick's first drill programs have been very large scale in terms of the distance between each hole, and we found mineralization in all these holes. This is very similar to Australia. Quite often you're finding things undercover in Australia. And fortunately for us, Fraser McCorkadale is Australian. Newcrest was based in Melbourne. And so he has an enormous amount of experience making discoveries in Australia under that same style of setting with the blankets there. So we've got really the best of both. We've got Barrick, who is a team that's focused on that first style. We've got Fraser McCorkadale, who's advising them and guiding them on the second style, and that helps us advance the rest of our portfolio as well.
Absolutely. That sounds like a really great setting that you're in, right? Great jurisdiction, great team, as we already said, great potential within your project. All of this sounds really, really great. And John, I think we touched a lot of things today. There is probably more to discover if people have a look at your presentation or your website, and all the links will be linked below so they can do their due diligence. But I think our interview certainly helps to really get a great overview of the company. And thank you very much for your time, for your insights, and sharing the story of Japan Gold. And I'm really looking forward to all your news flow within the next few months because it sounds really exciting.
Well, thank you, Jan. And I think what I'd love to do is just leave you and your investors with a couple of points. Whenever I'm looking as an investor myself at a precious metals explorer, I have my checklist, and my checklist is one that we've really covered today that you've so eloquently kind of put forward. So in not necessarily this particular order, but high grade gold is better than low grade gold, and Japan hosts a number of high grade gold mines, in fact, the largest in the world. The second is geopolitical safety. It's getting harder and harder to find a destination that is geopolitically safe. Japan is incredibly safe and a wonderful place with infrastructure, not only in the urban areas, but in the rural areas, incredible infrastructure that we can work with. So we've got, high grade gold, a rich history of high grade gold mining, but vastly underexplored because of the government moratorium in 1943. So showing great potential for us to go forward. Simple geology that we can look at that are just simple vein systems that are not metallurgically challenging, that are well understood, and where there's new models that really can focus in on new discoveries. So we check all these boxes. And then the final thing that I always look at as an investor is who's smarter than us has stepped in and de-risked this opportunity. And we've got the two largest gold mining companies in the world. And we've also got a number of major institutions who have done their due diligence as well. So all this comes together as a really undervalued opportunity, given the $20 million market cap and the $85 million that's been spent in country with ourselves and Barrick. So I really appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion with you today, and I hope that investors may have a look at our opportunity and come along on this exciting journey with us to unlock the riches of Japan.
Great, great, definitely. And I appreciate your time talking to us, guiding us through your story. It was really great listening to you, and I'm looking forward to get an update soon. John, thank you very much for your time, and talk to you soon.
Thank you.